Get the unmissable news stories of the day.
This is the Beijing Hour.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Shane Bigham with you on this Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, coming to you live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, the Chinese president's made a 4-point proposal for peace in the Middle East while meeting with the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi in Beijing. The U.S. president's threatened to eliminate any Iranian ships approaching the American blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. Japan's opposition parties have submitted proposals that would maintain strict controls on arms exports. In business, China's foreign trade grows at the fastest rate in 5 years. In sports, football results from the AFC Champions League elite. In culture and entertainment, a Chinese illustrator has won a top international award. And now the day's top stories. Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for adhering to the principles of peaceful coexistence as part of a 4-point proposal he made on maintaining peace and stability in the Middle East, and while meeting with the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi in Beijing. The president also touched on sovereignty, the international rule of law, and the coordination of development and security. President Xi said bilateral relations have maintained sound and steady development under joint efforts from both sides.
欢迎哈利德王储访华。 很高兴同你在北京会面。
We welcome Crown Prince Khaled to visit China. I'm very glad to meet with you in Beijing. The United Arab Emirates is China's comprehensive strategic partner. China attaches great importance to developing China-UAE relations. Today, changes in the world, the times, and history are unfolding in unprecedented ways, and human society is facing historical choices over peace or war, unity or confrontation, development or decline. China and the UAE, as important members of the Global South, must strengthen coordination and enhance cooperation to build a more resilient and vibrant China-UAE comprehensive strategic partnership.
Sheikh Khaled bin Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan said the two countries have maintained mutual respect and trust and have common interests.
Your Excellency, the President, the UAE's ties with China have a long history and deep roots. The UAE places great importance to its partnership with China. We are committed to further advancing bilateral relations and opening up broader prospects.
Crown Prince said the UAE appreciates China's efforts in reaching a political settlement of the Middle East crisis and will maintain close communication with China to promote a ceasefire and safeguard international shipping. President Xi Jinping also met with Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez in Beijing. He urged the two countries to safeguard the international system with the United Nations at its core and build a community with a shared future for mankind.
很高兴啊，同桑吉斯先生再次会面，这是你4年内第4次访华。
I'm very glad to meet with Mr. Sanchez again. This is your 4th visit in 4 years. The world today is witnessing incessant chaos and the collapse of international norms. How a country regards international law and international order reflects its worldview, values, conception of order, and sense of responsibility. China and Spain are countries that uphold principles and justice, and both are willing to stand on the right side of history. We should strengthen communication, consolidate mutual trust, and work closely together to prevent the world from retreating to the law of the jungle, jointly defending true multilateralism and safeguarding global peace and development.
Sanchez said Spain supports President Xi's 4 global initiatives and is willing to work with China to tackle challenges in geopolitics, trade protectionism, and climate change.
Presidente Xi, es un auténtico placer volver a verle.
President Xi, it's an honor to see you again. Today, we are willing to work with China to begin strategic dialogue between our countries and further elevate ties. We are friendly people with a constructive outlook and a long history, just like China. We are a stable and predictable nation because we know only this spirit will bring long-lasting prosperity and peace.
The Prime Minister also said his country opposes any new Cold War or decoupling and supports better understanding and closer cooperation between China and Europe. A Spanish meat industry leader is calling on producers to expand access to the Chinese market. Raul Garcia Pascual is president of Spain's Interprofessional Association of Iberian Pigs, and he said China is a crucial strategic market for Iberian pork.
Para CICI, para el sector ibérico.
For ASI, CI, and for the Iberian pork sector, the Chinese market is of paramount importance. Firstly, because it highly values Iberian products of various categories. And secondly, it's because of the large consumer population of the Chinese market, making it a prioritized destination for our sector.
Pascual noted that since Spain began exporting pork to China in 2008, export volumes have grown steadily, and more Spanish operators can now access the market. And Iberian pork products are found in Chinese supermarkets, restaurants, and hotels. Pascual emphasized that China remains a priority market for the Iberian pork sector. He also encouraged further strengthening of trade ties between the two countries. Spanish flavors are carving out a bigger place on Chinese tables. Rising demand for premium ingredients is turning food into one of the most vivid links between China and Spain. Chen Yilin reports.
Spanish flavors are finding a growing appetite in China. In Shanghai, restaurants specializing in authentic Spanish cuisine are attracting steady customer interest.
Next to me, the chefs are preparing one of Spain's most iconic dishes, paella. But beyond the flavors, what's driving the popularity here is something even deeper, a growing demand for healthier, high-quality ingredients.
Spanish people have olive oil, which is very healthy, a lot of vegetables. Coming here is like being in Spain. It's not just another Spanish restaurant. It's like you have exactly the same food, the wine is the same, we're in contact with local people in Spain. So it's not just a food experience, it's like traveling.
That demand is also reshaping what's on the shelf.
And it's not just about tasting. You can watch the process, learn the technique, and even step in to try it yourself.
And that growing appetite is now translating into real market demand.
We've been importing Spanish ham for 10 years, and in the past 5 years, our sales have doubled. Iberian ham in particular has seen rapid growth. It's no longer a niche luxury. It's becoming part of everyday dining culture.
Rising demand is also being supported by growing market access and trade platforms. Behind this growing appetite is a broader trend. China has remained Spain's largest trading partner outside the European Union. And as more Chinese consumers develop a taste for these premium imports, each bite tells a larger story of deepening ties between China and Spain.
That was Chen Yilin reporting. General Secretary To Lam of the Communist Party of Vietnam's Central Committee, also the Vietnamese president, is in China for a state visit. He arrived in Beijing on Tuesday, and he was scheduled to ride a high-speed train to Chong'an. We spoke with Dylan Lay at Vietnam Television about the significance of this visit.
This is the first state visit by General Secretary President To Lam in his capacity as the highest leader of the party and the state. So taking place exactly 1 year after the state visit to Vietnam by General Secretary President Xi Jinping, and marks the third bilateral visit within less than 2 years by the top leaders of the two parties and countries. Now, this visit holds three very special significances. Now, firstly, the visit marks a new beginning in bilateral relations as both countries enter a new phase of development. Now, Vietnam embarks on a new era of development following the successful conclusion of the 14th National Party Congress, while China begins implementing its 15th five-year economic and social development plan. So the early organization of the visit by both sides demonstrates their utmost importance and strong determination to develop the relationship of comrades and brothers in a more sustainable, stable, and substantive manner in the future. Secondly, the visit is a crucial opportunity to elevate strategic connectivity and establish a new height for the relationship between the two parties and countries. And thirdly, the visit will contribute to enhancing political trust, promoting solutions to resolve some remaining differences and obstacles, increasing people-to-people exchanges and local cooperation, thereby contributing to making the bilateral relationship more stable and sustainable and positively contributing to peace, stability, and cooperation in the region and the world.
Those were Vietnam's perspectives on General Secretary To Lam's state visit to China. Coming up, the U.S. threatens to eliminate Iranian ships approaching the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz.
You've been listening to programs from CGTN Radio.
CGTN Radio.
We invite you to visit us online for more audio, pictures, and in-depth reports. At radio.cgtn.com, you can access a wide range of programs and find your favorite news, talk, features, entertainment shows, and podcasts. Hear the difference with CGTN Radio.
It's 10 minutes past the hour. U.S. President Donald Trump has warned that the military will eliminate any Iranian ship that comes close to the U.S. blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. Washington said it also extends east of the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. Tehran's vowed that no port in the Gulf of Oman will be safe if the security of Iran's ports is threatened. Ehsan Kevani has more from central Iran.
Iran warns that any blockade would backfire dramatically. According to Iranian officials, the decision wouldn't just disrupt Tehran's revenue from transit fees, it would directly target the country's own import and export chain, in fact. In response, Tehran claims it has already floated crude oil on the sea beyond its storage capacity, roughly equivalent to 3 months of its sales. And it has successfully shipped about 174 million barrels. Iranian sources say this stockpile could guarantee the country's oil exports for up to 80 days. Meanwhile, Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf addressed the American people on X. Enjoy today's gas prices. He wrote, warning that once the blockade takes effect, the current prices of $4 to $5 per gallon will soon become a distant memory. An Iranian source also suggests that the latest U.S. threats could give Iran and Iran's allies a new leverage that would be the closure of Bab el-Mandab Strait in the Red Sea. Mohsen Rezai, a top advisor to Iran's supreme leader, says Iran's armed forces have a major unused leverage to confront Washington's new plans. The IRGC says if the security of the Iranian ports is threatened, no port in the Persian Gulf or the Sea of Oman will be safe.
That was Ehsan Kevani reporting. The U.S. president says his administration received a call from Iran on Monday, claiming that Tehran would like to make a deal, but also signaling Washington's eagerness to reach an agreement. Meanwhile, U.S. officials have indicated that military pressure, partly aimed to prevent Iran from using the Strait of Hormuz as leverage in the talks, remains part of the negotiating strategy. Jim Spellman has more.
President Donald Trump had threatened to block the entire Strait of Hormuz, but it now appears non-Iranian ships may be allowed to pass. Not clear, though, if those ships would be protected if traveling without coordinating with Iran. Trump says that one goal of the blockade is to fully reopen the strait eventually to get more oil to market and bring down prices. Listen.
We can't let a country blackmail or extort the world, because that's what they're doing. They're really blackmailing the world. We're not going to let that happen. And, you know, the amazing thing is we don't, can you believe this? We don't use the strait. We don't need the strait. We have our own oil and gas, much more than we need.
Trump says other countries will assist with the blockade, but so far U.S. allies, including the UK, say they will not participate. Trump acknowledged Monday that another goal of the blockade is to get the U.S.-Iran talks back on track. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif says efforts are underway to address key issues, including the status of the Strait of Hormuz and the issue of Iran's enriched uranium stockpiles, plus the country's ability to enrich more uranium in the future. Trump did praise his Vice President J.D. Vance, who led the U.S. team in talks. And it does appear that both sides are open to negotiations. The U.S.-Iran ceasefire remains in place, but at this point, no concrete plans for a second round of in-person talks.
That was Jim Spellman in Washington. China says only a full ceasefire can lay the essential groundwork for easing tensions across the Strait of Hormuz. The remarks follow the blockade of the strait by the U.S. on Monday. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said the blockade will only escalate tensions and undermine the fragile ceasefire. The spokesperson called on all parties to adhere to the ceasefire, focus on dialogue and consultation, and take steps to ease tensions and resume normal passage through the strait as soon as possible. The head of the International Maritime Organization says additional restrictive measures will not help resolve the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz, stressing that de-escalation is crucial to restoring normal shipping operations. Oil prices remain high, trading at nearly $100 a barrel. Jeff Moody has more.
The Secretary-General, Artemio Dominguez, did point out that any blockade in any waterway in the world is illegal under international maritime law, as it's also illegal for any tolls to be charged. Safe and free passage of waterways is what the organisation says is international law. It does also say, they also pointed out that because the Strait of Hormuz has been, in effect, closed for a considerable period of time now, we haven't really seen much traffic there since the beginning of March, almost since the conflict began. Not too many vessels are particularly trapped at the moment, although there have been around 10 to 12 vessels in the last few days that are struggling to make passage. They're still waiting for paperwork, they're still waiting for authorization. And he said for those vessels that are in effect stranded in the Strait of Hormuz, there are particular issues around providing them with fresh water, providing them with food, and providing them with shelter as well. And he said that their mental health is something that has become of concern to the IMO.
That was Jeff Moody in London. Hezbollah's leader has urged Lebanon to step down from scheduled direct talks with Israel. Naim Qassem made the remarks on the eve of the meeting between Lebanon and Israel's ambassadors to the U.S. Both sides set a framework for negotiations. Qassem called the negotiations absurd and a free concession to Israel and the U.S. The talks are set to take place in Washington and to be the first in decades. Qassem instead urged a return to the November 2024 ceasefire. Lebanon's government supported the talks, but Israel insists on Hezbollah's disarmament as a priority without mentioning a ceasefire or troop withdrawal. The war has killed over 2,000 people in Lebanon and displaced more than 1 million. A senior Hezbollah official says it'll not be bound by any agreement from the talks between Lebanon and Israel. Wafiq Safa said the group opposes the negotiations. An Israeli government spokesperson has said its upcoming direct talks with Lebanon will focus on disarming Hezbollah and establishing peace, not a ceasefire. Coming up, Japan's opposition parties want to maintain strict limits on arms exports.
From epic tales of mystery and magic to accounts of battle and empire, from the verses of ancient poets to the masterpieces of our times, A Light on Literature brings to life China's literary heritage and a look at the world in a new light.
It's 18 minutes past the hour. Japanese opposition parties have proposed revisions to the operational guidelines of the country's 3 principles on transfer of defense equipment and technology. This move comes after the ruling party began discussing a draft proposal that could ease restrictions on arms exports. Citizens have gathered in front of Parliament to protest the continued push to amend Japan's pacifist constitution.
It is precisely because of the existence of Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution that we have not been sucked into a war for as long as 80 years. But Takaichi's government has been calling for an amendment to the Constitution. This is absolutely ridiculous.
I feel very distressed. Takaichi's stance is very tough. She is vigorously promoting an increase in defense spending. The constitution was put in place to prevent this situation from happening. But Takaichi's government is trying to amend the constitution in a worse direction, transforming Japan into a nation capable of waging war. I strongly oppose this.
The opposition's proposals reportedly will require mandatory advance notification to the Diet for any arms exports exceeding a set monetary threshold. They also call for visualizing the process and impact of the government's planned abolition of the current rule, which limits arms exports to just 5 non-combat categories. Proposals demand parliamentary approval for first-time projects involving the export of highly lethal weapons. A senior Russian official is accusing Japan of pursuing a policy of renewed militarization that threatens security in the Asia-Pacific region. Presidential aide Nikolai Patrushev said Japan's actions violate international law, its own constitution, and the Japanese instrument of surrender. He noted that Japan's maritime self-defense force is receiving increasingly advanced submarines, long-range missile systems, and laser weapons. Patrushev also said Japan's created a special unit to coordinate the deployment of unmanned weapons and AI systems across its naval forces. He predicted that Tokyo will continue building up its military for offensive operations, alone and as part of coalitions including NATO countries. Hungary's incoming prime minister says he's open to cooperation with China. Speaking after his TISA party won the parliamentary vote, Peter Magyar called China one of the most important and strongest countries in the world. He said cooperation serves the interests of both sides and expressed hope to visit Beijing and welcomes Chinese leaders to Hungary. Magyar said Hungary warmly welcomes investors as long as common interests are found. Magyar has promised a new era, drawing praise from European leaders who see him as a departure from outgoing Prime Minister Viktor Orban. He reaffirmed Hungary's place in the EU, vowing to be a constructive partner.
Hungary will be there. It will be a constructive partner because Europe is in trouble in many aspects. A war has been raging right next to us for more than 4 years, and the economic and other conditions are very difficult. Europe has fallen behind, and that's putting it mildly. Europe faces enormous challenges in terms of competitiveness and social issues. We are here and we are trying to help.
Magyar also said he opposes fast-track EU membership for Ukraine, arguing it's impossible for a country at war to join. China is on track to become the world's largest generator of nuclear energy, with 112 reactor units either in operation, under construction, or approved. It signed on to an international pledge to triple global nuclear energy capacity by 2050. To understand how China is growing from a nuclear newcomer to the world's largest generator of nuclear power, the evolution of the country's nuclear technology, and what's driving this renewed global momentum, Zhao Eng spoke with Professor Zhao Jiyun from the Department of Mechanical Engineering at City University of Hong Kong.
How important is nuclear energy for China's carbon peaking and carbon neutrality goals? Like, is it essential or is it perhaps just one of the several options?
Nuclear energy is no longer just one of many options in China. It has become essential for the dual carbon goals. The reasons are, first, renewable energies such as wind and solar are intermittent by nature, but nuclear provides a steady, high-capacity power supply. As China phases out coal, nuclear is the only carbon-free technology that can match our coal's reliability to keep the industry grid stable. Second, we are seeing a shift where nuclear isn't just for electricity anymore. It's being used for comprehensive utilization, providing industrial steam and district heating. This is vital because the heavy industry is one of the hardest sectors to decarbonize, and nuclear heat offers a direct solution that solar and wind cannot easily replicate. Finally, looking forward to 2060, the consensus is that to achieve 80% non-fossil energy, China needs a massive scale-up of nuclear energy. Current projections suggest nuclear will need to provide about 18 to 20% of total power.
How did the country transition so quickly from relying on foreign technology to becoming a global leader in this field?
The journey of China's commercial nuclear power started from 1980s, firstly by importing technology from the foreign countries such as France and Russia. But what changed the game was a very deliberate multi-step strategy, learned by building, standardize, and innovate. China didn't just buy reactors instead of insisting on technology transfer and local manufacturing. With each unit built, Chinese engineers gradually grew up with better established experience, and the domestic supply chain got stronger. The other big piece is consistency. While some countries went through boom and bust cycles, China stuck to a steady and long-term plan. This allows it to build fleets of the same reactor type, bringing down costs and construction times. Now, China is not just building the most reactors, but leading in the Generation 4 reactor field.
China is also experimenting with multiple fourth-generation reactor technologies, from high-temperature gas-cooled reactors to the thorium molten salt reactors. Can you explain what makes a reactor fourth generation?
The Generation 4 nuclear technology includes 6 types of advanced reactor designs, with focus on sustainability, safety, economics, and proliferation resistance. The only nuclear fuel can be found in the nature is uranium-235, which has limited reserves and can be used up within about 50 years. So therefore, one of the key tasks for next generation or Generation 4 reactors is fuel sustainability, which can transmute uranium-238 and thorium-232 to nuclear fuel for thousands of years reign. So in addition, Generation 4 reactors aim to be even much safer than Generation 3 reactors, not only preventing fuel meltdown in accidents, but also operating more efficiently.
That was Professor Zhao Jiyun on China's nuclear energy technology. To hear more of the conversation and other discussions on China's dual carbon goals, you're welcome to check out our Climate Watch podcast. The United Nations has celebrated Chinese Language Day ahead of its official observance next week. Speakers highlighted the study of Mandarin and the increasing favorable view of China among young people. Mitch McCann reports from New York.
Chinese was established as one of the United Nations official languages in 1946. More than 80 years later, it's been celebrated at the World Body's headquarters in New York under the theme Chinese Language, Shining Civilizations. At desks adorned with gifts for those in attendance, speakers including China's ambassador to the UN highlighted the growth of Chinese language on young people.
This fascination with all things Chinese has continued to gain momentum, with experiencing Chinese lifestyle and taking spontaneous trips to China quietly is becoming the it thing to do. On social media, becoming Chinese is trending, transforming China from a name of an ancient country in the East into an expression associated with vividity and vibrancy.
The United Nations says Language Days seek to celebrate multilingualism and are an opportunity to promote all 6 official languages of the UN, of which Chinese is one.
They offer us a moment of pause. Remember the importance of language and effective communication. Every time we protect space for multilingualism, we protect space for participation.
Speakers highlighted the important role that the Chinese language is playing in diplomacy, international relations and business. Connor Lennon from the UN's Global Communications team is learning Chinese himself and says he's been watching as a younger generation has become eager to learn the language.
It's clearly becoming much more important. You hear it all the time at school level. Parents want their kids to learn Chinese as the first foreign language rather than, say, it might have been French or Spanish before. I'm from the UK originally, and I'm seeing it now with my nieces and nephews. Chinese is the first language that so many kids now want to learn.
Guests in New York also watched entries from a short video contest run by the Chinese mission to the UN. Participants were asked to submit videos celebrating Chinese culture, and attendees enjoyed a number of musical performances during the event.
It was really great, and I loved the music, and I loved the aria at the end. I think the soprano was really awesome. It was really great. But it's a nice event to come together and to, exercise and sort of like ponder over a little bit those wonderful principles of harmony and unity and so on.
Chinese Language Day will be officially celebrated on the 20th of April, with a number of events planned to showcase the UN's Chinese translation service and a forum on how Chinese can empower youth participation in UN affairs.
That was Mitch McCann on events marking Chinese Language Day. The world's oldest captive gorilla has celebrated her 69th birthday with a feast at the Berlin Zoo. Fatou arrived in West Berlin in 1959, believed to be around 2 years old. Gorillas typically live around 35 to 40 years in the wild, and Fatou became the zoo's oldest resident last year. We're at 29 past the hour. Beijing getting a light rainfall overnight. It's down to 9 degrees. Cloudy and 26 for Wednesday. Shanghai's getting some rainfall overnight. It's down to 14, then overcast and 21. Chongqing also getting light rain, but that continues through the day tomorrow with a low of 18 and a high of 26. Nanchang will see thunder showers overnight and through tomorrow, a low of 18, a high of 23. Last is cloudy and +2, then overcast and 15. Elsewhere in Asia, Islamabad's getting some clouds and a low of 16, and then turning to 30 degrees on Wednesday. Vientiane's down to 25, followed by sunshine and 39. It's time for a short break. So far this hour, the Chinese president's made a 4-point proposal for peace in the Middle East while meeting with the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi in Beijing. The U.S. president's threatened to eliminate any Iranian ships approaching the American blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, and Japan's opposition parties have submitted proposals that would maintain strict controls on arms exports. Shane Bigham with you. Stay with us here on the Beijing Hour.
Shh, listen up. Can you hear the heartbeat of our world? It's vibrant and pulsating with the essence of life itself. From the stem of trees to the gurgle of rivers. From the silent strength of mountains to the icy whispers of glaciers. Even the solid ground beneath our feet. And right there, in the midst of all, beats the heart of humanity. What if those other heartbeats were to stop? Would ours keep on ticking?
Ever wondered what's actually going on in Africa through the perspective of an African? How are things really going between China and Africa? What's the narrative of this relationship? Well, get a perspective with China-Africa Talk. Hear from African diplomats, entrepreneurs, academics, Chinese natives, and more. Get on our wavelength every week to find out what's real with China-Africa Talk. Find us on your favorite podcast. We'll see you there.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host,
Shane Bigham with you on this Tuesday. Still to come. In business, China's foreign trade grows at the fastest rate in 5 years. In sports, football results from the AFC Champions League elite. In culture and entertainment, a Chinese illustrator has won a top international award. To contact us, you can email radio@cgtn.com or follow our X account @CGTNradio. But now with the check of the day's headlines, here's Tian Yu.
Thank you, Shane. The Chinese president has put forward a 4-point proposal to promote peace and stability in the Middle East. Xi Jinping was meeting with Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi in Beijing. The proposal includes adhering to the principle of peaceful coexistence, respecting national sovereignty, upholding the international rule of law, and balancing development with security. On China-UAE relations, President Xi called on both sides to continue supporting each other on issues concerning their core interests and major concerns, maintain high-level exchanges, and strengthen strategic mutual trust.
China and the UAE, as important Global South countries, should strengthen coordination and expand cooperation to foster a more resilient and vibrant, comprehensive strategic partnership between the two countries.
Crown Prince Khalid said the UAE appreciates China's role in helping resolve crises in the Middle East and will maintain close communication and coordination with China. China and Spain have pledged to deepen cooperation and uphold multilateralism amid a complex global landscape. This comes as the Chinese president met with Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez in Beijing during his official visit to China. President Xi said China-Spain relations have witnessed steady growth despite a complex international landscape. He called for more cooperation with Spain in trade, new energy, and the digital economy, as well as stronger exchanges in culture, education, science, and sports. He also said China and Spain should uphold multilateralism, defend the UN-centered international system, and promote more inclusive and orderly global development.
We should strengthen communication, consolidate mutual trust, and work closely together to prevent the world from retreating into the law of the jungle, jointly defend true multilateralism, and safeguard global peace and development.
The Spanish Prime Minister said cooperation with Chinese companies has contributed to Spain's economic growth. He reaffirmed Spain's commitment to the One China principle and to developing a stable, long-term partnership with China. China has expressed opposition to London's exclusion of a Chinese company from its offshore wind projects under the pretext of national security. It came after the British government announced it does not support the use of wind turbines manufactured by Mingyang Smart Energy in British offshore wind projects. A Chinese Commerce Ministry spokesperson says such a move is not conducive to Britain's own economic development or the well-being of its people and will have a negative impact on bilateral economic and trade ties. The spokesperson calls on Britain to provide a fair, just, and non-discriminatory business environment for Chinese enterprises. A poll shows that nearly 3 in 5 Canadians support joining the European Union. The Globe and Mail and Nano survey found around 57% of respondents either support or somewhat support Canada becoming a full EU member. Only 32% oppose the idea. Pollster Nick Nanos says Canadians still value free trade with the US, but they want closer ties with Europe. The survey also found over 80% of Canadians believe strengthening economic ties with the EU is the most viable path forward for Canada-EU relations. One expert says US President Donald Trump's threats to use economic force against Canada have made European partners look more appealing. The poll comes as the future of the North American Free Trade Agreement remains under negotiation. And finally, Japanese police have rearrested a self-defense forces member who broke into the Chinese embassy last month on suspicion of violating the firearms and source control law. 23-year-old Kodai Mulata threatened to kill Chinese diplomatic personnel in an incident last month. The new arrest adds a further charge on weapons possession.
All right, thank you very much. That's Tianyu with headlines. Coming up in business, China's foreign trade grows at the fastest rate in 5 years.
The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
36 past the hour. In business, stock markets on the Chinese mainland closed higher on Tuesday. The Shanghai Composite rose nearly 1%, while the Shenzhen Component gained 1.6%, its strongest level since January 2022. Gains were supported by optimism over renewed U.S.-Iran diplomatic signals, after U.S. President Donald Trump said Tehran had reached out on a potential deal, and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian expressed openness to further talks under international law. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index added 0.8%, while Japan's Nikkei surged more than 2.4%. A London-based asset management firm has projected a 10% rise on the Chinese stock market by year-end. Eurizon attributes the potential growth to an anticipated rebound in corporate profits, a contraction in real estate supply, and significant household savings, all of which are fueling new momentum for the market. China's foreign trade grew 15% in the first quarter, reaching 11.8 trillion yuan, or about $1.7 trillion US dollars, and marking the fastest growth in 5 years. Exports totaled 6.8 trillion yuan, up nearly 12%, while imports rose almost 20% to roughly 5 trillion. Private companies saw a 16% increase, totaling 6.8 trillion, making up over 57% of total trade. Foreign invested companies also experienced strong growth, with imports and exports reaching around 3.5 trillion yuan. Exports of green products, including electric vehicles, lithium batteries, and wind turbines, surged, with the electric vehicle exports up 77.5% and lithium batteries rising over 50%. For more on the trade data, Michael Wang spoke with Wang Yaojing, Associate Professor of Economics at Peking University.
Foreign enterprises in China reporting 16% trade growth in Q1, matching the performance of domestic private sector companies. What's your take on that, first of all? And second of all, Professor, as foreign companies step up both trade and investment, how are they reshaping their strategies to stay competitive in the Chinese market?
So the number is actually quite significant. And what the Q1 trade data signals is, first of all, foreign firms are not withdrawing at scale, and most multinationals still see China as a core manufacturing and export platform. And second, China's export engine remains integrated with global companies, and many export sectors, such as electronics and EV supply chains, are still built around joint production networks with technology in China manufacturing capacity. So in other words, foreign firms are not leaving China. They are repositioning within it And one of the most important changes is the localization of operations. And many multinationals are moving towards this China for China model, meaning local R&D, local supply chains, local management, and product design specifically for Chinese consumers. And besides how they operate, foreign companies are also changing what they do in China. And China has been transitioning from simply a manufacturing base to innovation, engineering, also a supply chain hub. So as China opens up for more foreign investment and businesses, there will be more opportunities for foreign firms in China, and not just for the Chinese market, but for their overall innovation and supply globally as well.
That was Professor Wang Yaojing from Peking University. Meanwhile, foreign trade data also shows that Shanghai's economy had a strong start this year, with AI, integrated circuits, and biomedicine manufacturing seeing double-digit growth in the first 2 months. Retail sales rose 7.2%, and fixed asset investment increased 7.4%. Foreign trade grew by around 22% in the first quarter. Shanghai continues to attract foreign investment, hosting over 1,000 multinational headquarters and more than 650 foreign-funded R&D centers. China's National Development and Reform Commission says the country had a strong economic start in the first quarter, with notable gains in investment, consumer spending, and foreign trade. Zhang Tao has more.
Investment activity, particularly in infrastructure, has picked up pace. Construction machinery use saw a significant rise, signaling a rebound in infrastructure projects. This growth was supported by a 20% increase in special purpose bond insurance and a rise in bids for tech-related projects. Sectors like artificial intelligence and humanoid robots saw a sharp 45.5% increase in investment, driving innovation. Startups and tech firms also grew, with AI becoming a key driver of economic transformation. Innovation is also evident in patent activity, with AI-related patents up by over 30%, indicating strong momentum in emerging industries. On the consumer side, retail payments grew by 3.4% and goods rose by 5.2%, with electronics and home appliances showing the fastest growth, highlighting a shift toward tech-driven consumer spending. For the Beijing Hour, this is Zhang Tao.
An industrial report reveals China leads the world in AI publication volume, citation counts, patent output, and industrial robot installations. The 2026 AI Index report by Stanford University's Institute for Human-Centered AI shows China's closing the performance gap with the U.S. in AI models. However, the report notes that while AI capabilities are advancing rapidly, efforts to govern and measure them are lagging, raising concerns over environmental costs, transparency, and benefit distribution. Holiday data from New Year's to the early April period shows that more people are traveling farther and spending in more diverse ways. President Dai Bin of the China Tourism Academy emphasizes that cities should focus on meeting people's needs.
We can unlock today's consumption trends through one key idea: better living. That means a blend of everyday vitality, cultural richness, and a growing sense of technology. More people are shifting toward experiences that are tangible, things they can touch, feel, and find comfort in. But the core principle is this: consumption should be rooted in the daily lives of local residents. A city, first and foremost, should serve its own people.
Flight bookings on popular routes rose over 40% from the previous year, and nearly 60% of travelers are willing to pay more for unique, experience-driven trips. China's central bank data shows yuan-denominated loans increased by 8.6 trillion yuan, roughly $1.25 trillion in the first quarter. By the end of March, outstanding yuan loans reached over 280 trillion yuan, up 5.7%. Yuan deposits rose by 13.7 trillion, with outstanding deposits reaching 342.4 trillion. The central bank said it'll maintain an accommodative monetary policy this year. Canada is the guest of honor at this year's China International Consumer Products Expo, bringing in its largest trade delegation. Xu Hua has more.
The expo in Hainan is buzzing. Exhibitors are showing off goods to would-be buyers. With the island-wide special customs operation now in effect, this year's vibe is all about opportunity.
So, who's drawing the spotlight this year? Canada, making its first appearance as guest country of honor.
Nearly 40 Canadian brands are showcasing their products, spanning sectors such as pet food, tea, and health supplements. Canada has come to every edition of the expo, but this year they leveled up.
I think the Hainan Free Trade Port is a really wonderful place for someone like me with a foreign product, like made in Canada, to bring it in and land it there and then be able to plan on how to get it to the rest of the world the most tax-efficient way.
We've been here for 6 years. We see that this market is an amazing opportunity. And so whatever makes sense, both from a policy perspective, we are more than happy to entertain. If that means opening up a location in Hainan, which we would be excited to do as well, that's what we would do.
That's the big picture, but on the ground, you need local partners.
This healthcare company is Hainan-based, and they are tied deeply to Canada's supply chain.
We are the biggest buyer of Canadian ginseng in Hainan. The Hainan Free Trade Port's value-added processing tariff exemption delivers real gains for both sides. It cuts our costs, and for the Canadian supplier, it means stable growing orders all year round.
Imported products that undergo at least 30% value-added processing in Hainan can enter the mainland tariff-free. For Hainan companies, that means lower costs and bigger imports with better prices. And for foreign suppliers, that's the model to copy. Find a solid local partner, use Hainan as a processing hub, then sell to out of China.
So this is more than a trade fair. It's a blueprint with stable buyers here and tariff savings built in. Hainan is a launchpad to the broader Chinese market.
That was Shuhua reporting. High petrol prices in Europe drove car buyers toward EVs in March, marking the first month of global EV sales growth this year. Data from Benchmark Mineral Intelligence showed global registration of new battery, electric, and plug-in hybrids rose 3% on a yearly basis to over 1.7 million, with Europe seeing a 37% surge to a record 540,000 EVs sold. Growth was strongest in countries with sharp energy price hikes, including Australia, New Zealand, Vietnam, and Thailand. Australia's economy is facing significant fallout from the ongoing Iran conflict, as recent surveys reveal sharp declines in business and consumer confidence. The National Australia Bank Business Confidence Index plummeted 29 points in March, the second largest monthly drop on record, mirroring the downturn seen during the 2008 global financial crisis and the COVID pandemic. A separate survey showed consumer sentiment dropped to 80.1 in April, the lowest in over 2 years. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in sports, football results from the AFC Champions League Elite.
Sideline Story brings you all things sports related. The hottest topics, latest events, juiciest stories, all with a very personal take. Subscribe to Sideline Story Podcast for heated sports discussions covering events that are happening in China and around the world.
47 past now, and turning to sports. Here's Yang Guang.
Thank you, Shane. We start with football from the AFC Champions League Elite. Four-time champions Al Hilal were knocked out in the last 16 by Qatari side Al Sadd, who prevailed 4-2 in a penalty shootout after an enthralling 3-3 draw after extra time in Jeddah. The match was a battle between two Italian coaches, with Al Sadd's Roberto Mancini facing Simone Inzaghi on the Al Hilal bench. Mancini reflected on his team's performance and the challenges ahead.
Because in this Champions League there are a very top team like Al Hilal, Al Ahly, Etihad, very strong team. They were candidate to win this championship, but in football is strange sometimes. I think that we are a really good team. We play very good football, and this is for us is very important. And in the end, we will see what can happen.
Earlier in Jeddah, Saudi side Al Ahly defeated Qatar's Al Duhail 1-0 after extra time. Despite a series of missed chances from both teams, Riyad Mahrez struck a late free kick to secure a victory for the defending champions. Al Ahly will next face Malaysian side Johor Darul Ta'zim for a place in the semi-finals. In the English Premier League, Leeds United claimed a historic victory at Old Trafford, beating Manchester United 2-1 to secure their first win at the stadium in 45 years. A double from Noah Okafor sealed the result as Leeds moved 6 points clear of the relegation zone. Jayden Bogle delivered a teasing cross into the box and Okafor side-footed home in the 5th minute to put the visitors ahead. The Swiss forward doubled the advantage in the 29th minute, volleying in after a defensive mix-up. United's hopes suffered a major setback in the 56th minute when Lisandro Martinez was shown a straight red card following a VAR review for pulling the hand of Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Man United did rally late on. Bruno Fernandes's deep delivery found Casemiro, who headed home in the 69th minute to set up a tense finish. Manchester United interim head coach Michael Carrick questioned the defending of decision.
It's not aggressive, there's no jolt, there's no tug, there's no sudden movement. He kind of touches it and glances through it, and just got to be careful where the game's going if we give him red cards for that. But then you can do 2 arms in the face, the red card and the first goal, and that's deemed alright. So it's a shocking decision, absolutely shocking decision. I know he touched his hair, you can't deny he touched his hair. There's a difference between touching somebody the way he has and brushed his hair to actually really aggressively tugging on it, which certainly we've seen at certain points where there's a real kind of emphasis to, it's really concerning.
The result leaves Leeds in 15th place, while Man United remains in 3rd. Barcelona is preparing for a crucial UEFA Champions League quarter-final second leg as they look to overturn a 2-0 deficit against Atletico Madrid. Teenage star Lamine Yamal remains confident that Barcelona can mount a comeback, dismissing suggestions that the team would need a miracle to progress to the semi-finals. Despite Atletico's strong position, Barcelona believes they have the quality to upset Diego Simeone's side at Metropolitano Stadium. The Catalan club will also be eager to avoid a repeat of their previous visit to the venue, where they suffered a 4-0 defeat in the first leg of their Copa del Rey semi-finals. Barca head coach Hansi Flick has praised Yamal's recent performances while emphasizing the importance of teamwork ahead of the decisive encounter.
I think Lamine is performed really good in the last games, so I'm very happy with him. And also, what I say to him is he has to make these things where he's the best at the moment in the world, 1-against-1 situation, and of course we have to help him. We have also give him the option that he can pass. This is important, and we have to play as a team, as one unit. This is important for tomorrow. So I don't take care about individually about players. We know that we have a lot of players with huge quality, but the same is also with Atletico.
The winners of the tie will advance to face either Arsenal or Sporting for a place in the final, setting stage for a high-stakes encounter in Madrid. And finally, in women's international basketball, China announced a 19-player list for training camp ahead of the FIBA Women's World Cup and this year's Asian Games. WCBA picks include Yang Shuyu, Wang Ziyu, and teen standout Zhang Ziyu, who helped China secure a World Cup spot last month. Zhang Ru, part of the World Cup qualifier roster, is left out this time. 2 players from Beijing Normal University, Li Xingnor and Zhang Zihan, also made the cut, along with 3 overseas-based players, Li Yueru, Han Xu, and first-time call-up Deng Yuting, who plays in the NCAA.
All right, thank you very much. That's Yang Guang with sports. And you're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in culture and entertainment, Chinese illustrators won a top international award.
From north to south, east to west, people in China are chasing their dreams and leaving their mark. Want to know how they beat the odds and made a difference? Footprints brings you the true life stories of their journeys.
53 past now. Turning to culture and entertainment. The International Board on Books for Young Peoples announced that Chinese illustrator Tsai Gao has won the Hans Christian Andersen Award. The announcement was made at the Bologna Children's Book Fair in Italy. Tsai became the first Chinese illustrator to receive that prestigious award, widely regarded as the highest international honor in children's literature for writers and illustrators. The award's jury praised Tsai's work for its exceptional quality, artistry, and emotional engagement. Tsai's worked in publishing and children's books creation since the 1970s. She's remained deeply committed to the development of children's illustrations in China. Her well-known works include The Land of Peach Blossom and Bao Er, which have gained popularity at home and abroad. The Hans Christian Andersen Award is presented every 2 years to a living author and illustrator whose work has made a lasting contribution to children's literature. In 2016, Chinese author Cao Wenxuan became the first Chinese recipient in the writers category. With over more than 200 years of history, Peking opera is one of China's most traditional art forms, and today efforts are underway to introduce it to a new generation. Lin Lin has more.
It's early Saturday morning, and these kids are already training, stretching and building flexibility that Peking opera demands. Painful, but essential to the art. And this boy is here for his first class. His best friend talked him into it. Peking opera is a 200-year-old traditional Chinese art form. While it faces growing competition from new forms of entertainment, it is gaining new fans among younger generations. Workshops like this are designed to spark that interest early, giving children the chance to connect with this traditional art form. But it's also part of a much bigger effort. It's part of a broader 3-year plan to support and revitalize traditional Chinese opera. And it's through efforts like these that the centuries-old tradition continues into a new generation.
China's film market is off to a strong start in 2026, with total box office revenue surpassing 12.5 billion yuan, or roughly $1.8 billion as of April 14th. The upcoming May Day holiday has 17 new films. This year's holiday lineup features a diverse range of genres, including action, comedy, suspense, animation, and historical war films, showcasing domestic and international productions. Among the notable Chinese releases are the crime action film Cold War 1994, and the animated feature Red Boy. The May Day holiday is widely regarded as one of the most important box office windows of the year, often delivering strong ticket sales and audience turnout. The thriving Chinese film market has also attracted major international titles. The beloved classic The Devil Wears Prada returns with a sequel nearly 2 decades after the original film's release. The sequel reunites the original cast, including Meryl Streep and Anne Hathaway, with David Frankel returning as director.
Post Plus, a selection of the best podcasts in China, covering history, customs, music, literature, and in-depth dialogues. Find your way to a wealth of Chinese culture and thinking, all on Post Plus.
Want to learn about world affairs in a more laid-back and accessible manner? Join insiders, experts, and analysts in the casual setting of the Chat Lounge to hear their personal experiences and opinions on major events and hot issues. Subscribe to Chat Lounge for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Checking the forecast before we go. Beijing will see a light rainfall overnight. It's down to 9 degrees Tuesday evening. Clouds and 26 for Wednesday. Shanghai is getting some rain overnight, down to 14. Overcast conditions and 21 tomorrow. Chongqing will see a light rainfall overnight and through tomorrow with a low of 18, a high of 26. Nanchang gets thunder showers right through tomorrow, a low of 18, a high of 23. Now Lhasa is getting clouds and a low of +2, then overcast conditions in 15. Elsewhere in Asia, Islamabad will be cloudy and down to 16, a high of 30 on Wednesday. And that's it for this edition of the Beijing Hour. Making news today, the Chinese president's made a 4-point proposal for peace in the Middle East while meeting with the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi in Beijing. And Japan's opposition parties have submitted proposals that would maintain strict controls on arms exports. On behalf of the staff, Shane Bigham in the Chinese capital, hoping you'll join us for the next edition of the Beijing Hour and open a window to the world together.
Find the Beijing Hour at precisely 6 p.m. Beijing time. We meet you on podcast and on air every weekday. The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
He can't live without the Yellow River in his eyes.
The Yellow River is so noble and elegant.
Both my grandpa and dad made a living from the river.
Would you like to move away from the Yellow River?
I don't think I will. I love it so much.
The Yellow River, the second longest river in China, is regarded as a shaping force in the history, economy and culture of northern China. Today, about 100 million people live within its water basin, making up nearly 9% of the country's population. How is climate change felt at its headwaters, and what are the locals doing to cope with it? What are the descendants of the boatmen doing? What has kept some people from leaving their home village by the river, and what has drawn others back? Could the fading fishing community revive in the time of digital transformation? From 2021 to 2024, our reporters visited the upper, middle and lower reaches of the Yellow River, talked to the herders, farmers, boatmen, fishermen and eco-activists who share a close bond with the river, and present their stories in pictures, podcasts and videos, all in our 12-part series, The Yellow River Mosaic, available only on CGTN Radio.